Hello, and welcome back to the Check and Chat podcast. We've checked into the pit stop, and now we're chatting all things Amazing Race. I'm your host, Matt, and today it's season 37, episode 6. We're in Dubai, and we have a lot to get through today. I have a lot to say this week. This also is going to be the first time I'm on location. Very exciting. I'm not in my studio. I'm in London, getting ready for the London Eurovision party. So I'm doing this from a hotel room, so I've got a makeshift setup. So I hope everything comes across okay this week. It's all very exciting. We've got a return of It's Fashion, a haute couture. Yes, we have, and the return of the Jack and Carson segment, because I know you've all been dying for the last 2 weeks that we haven't had it, but it's back. I have a lot to say this week. It could go on for a bit, and later on in the show I will be having our last edition of the Boiler Room as we talk about the final few legs of season 38 and Australia 7th edition season 9, which have wrapped up filming this week. So we have so much to get through, so buckle up. Let's get straight into the episode. And we start with Mark and Brett. They're leaving first at 3:55 a.m. and they're told to fly to Dubai. Now, they go to a travel agency and they realise that everyone's going to be on the same flight. So basically, they don't show the rest going to travel agency. That's pretty much it. See, they should learn that from the previous legs. That's what they should have easily come. And then Jack and Carson are leaving second again at 4:04 a.m. And of course, this is now the time of the week. It's back. It's time for Jack and Carson's Tomophos. This is the recurring segment of the podcast. We haven't done it for the last few weeks, really in depth like this, where I will talk a lot of gay things. So this is the option for you straights, particularly straight males. You can check out here and come back in a few minutes. That's okay. Give it about 15 minutes. I have a lot to talk about this week. Okay? Come back during that time. You know, you can watch a Coachella live stream. Okay? It's happening right now, so do what you want. Okay? Good. Now, a few weeks ago, I need to start with this first. Jack and Carson did some quite terrible British accents, and I said that I would do a full-on review about it, but I gave a condition. If you won the fast forward, I will scrap the review. And guess what they did? They won the dang fast forward in this leg. So you live for another day, boys. Your time will come. So you don't get an accent review. You get a fashion review instead. It's time for It's Fashion or Haute Couture. This is the segment where I break down the fashion looks. Now, usually I only do this in the premiere episode, but these boys, their fashions. Now, last week, we talked about Carson, his sort of like medieval guard, and it looked very commoner. Jack's was even worse. I had to cut it out. I cut it out in the editing room. I called him Fashion Police. I was like, I want to call the Fashion Police. I cut that out of last week's podcast because I thought I was being a bit too mean. I was ripping it in good, so I cut it out because I just couldn't do that. Okay, I couldn't keep it in. But Jack actually looked good this week. Jack was wearing like something that I would wear. I lived with like I was happy with like it was casual wear I got. But this week let's go into Carson. Okay, now I've noticed that Carson likes wearing shirts. Yeah, I've noticed that, and it gets additional points because it has the pocket square on. I love me a good pocket square. There's a friend of mine who hates it. We were having an argument about it the other day. How can you not love a good pocket square? Always remember it's fashion over function. Okay, like there's nothing else. It's always for fashion purposes only. I'm totally ignoring the Shrek hat thing. I'm ignoring it. This shirt was giving me U.S. Postal Service. It was. It was like he just came home from the Postal Service. Wadsworth says, I have a similar shirt to that for work. That's only because it's short sleeves and we've had a lot of hot days. But for this occasion, it was not the look. It was not the moment. I'm sorry, Carson. It was not the look. Okay, thank you. And that is this week's It's Fashion or Haute Couture. I may get back to you about that next week. Well, wait and see. Apparently, also, so this is mainly from their recap. I forgot to point out. But apparently, Scott sent everyone assorted lollipops based on each team. And so apparently, the Scott and Laurie's last week was like a pink lemonade flavor, and Courtney and Jasmine's was like not lemonade, a pineapple flavor, pineapple. And I wonder what Jen Carson's is gonna be. Maybe like a lime flavor, or an apple flavor. I don't know. Anyway, so they were talking about the homestays, and from the previous leg, there was a spider in the room that Jack didn't want to kill. Jack, if I was there, I would have happily killed it for you. Happily. But then they got distracted because apparently there was two geckos on the ceiling engaging in intercourse, which apparently was very amusing. And was very distracting. But also, as I mentioned last week, from what Mark and Beth said, the mosquitoes, they were just there. It was open air. I would have just like cocooned myself in a sleeping bag, honestly. We also find out that it was Han who's the one who peed. So who peed themselves on the way to the pit stop last week. I can't. Because Han is becoming such an icon. Every episode, Han is becoming more and more of an icon, and I live for it. You know how last week everyone was gathering together before they went to the U-turn vote? Apparently, that's when Mark last week told them about everyone on the mat. Because, there were 6 teams there on the mat, them saying about, all this is going down with Scott and Laurie, and people have been talking. And so that's how they knew Scott and Laurie were going to get lots of votes, and that's why they voted for Jonathan Anna. Interesting. Mark spend the gossip. I love that. And apparently Scott and Laurie's taxi hit a bird, and that's why they got to the detour late. And apparently, they lost to Jonathan Arnold by 6 minutes, which isn't as close as what today's was. We're going to talk about that later, but it was still upsetting. Also, they talk about Scott and Laurie. There was something to do with dry coral. I don't know this. Someone needs to fill me in. I need the gossip. Where are my gays at? Gays, give me the tea. What is this about dry coral? I do not know. Anyway. So Carson goes on to talk about how he was on this show called Brain Surge. I haven't really looked into it. I've seen the clip that Carson was on. It was like 11. Let me tell you, Carson does not look the same as Carson today. I'm being real here. Okay, he does not look the same. But I didn't think that was Carson. But he did win, and apparently he did have the best time ever. I think it was within that particular round that he was playing, which was like Finding the Path. He won an electric guitar. I think it was a scooter or bike, a trip to San Francisco. I want to know about the trip to San Francisco. I want to know all the details. Well, I love San Francisco. Sue me. Anyway, so we're going to talk about why Jack went on to do the roadblock last week, and Mark and Brett overtook them. And so apparently the clue when heading to the roadblock said that the clue box is at this restaurant. So then they chose Jack because they thought it was going to be a cooking challenge. What is it about teams thinking there's going to be cooking challenges? The 2 weeks ago, they chose Melinda for the rice roadblock because they thought they were going to be cooking, and now Morgan hit did they just expect that there's going to be like a cooking challenge? Because I would never have thought that. And we do get sort of the typical cooking challenge this week, but come on, okay? What is it with the cooking? But they say, Brett would have taken over regardless. But then what I did love is that sort of Carson was sort of hanging out with Mark. But he was like I would say to his face, like, Mark, I loved hanging out with you on the beach today. I can't trust you as far as I can throw you. I loved the way he said it. It was so dramatic, and I love it. And I lived for it. Lived. And it was giving me very Steel Magnolias, which I feel now shows my age a little bit. It was giving me Steel Magnolias. For those who know the reference, we get the reference. Also, Jack was talking about how people, were saying about the U-turn vote, and sort of asking a lot of questions about it. Jack was sort of like he was sort of suggesting the system, which is, by the way, the Hammerot system. He was basically saying Hammerot's voting strategy. You know how they vote at the start of a leg, and as they leave, and then find out later on the leg. But of course, he obviously has not watched Hammerot, so he won't know this. But I got that instantly. And this is the last thing. This is something that really I want to really talk about a little bit more in depth. Is that being straight in Dubai? And so here's what I mean. So I saw TikTok about how we were saying, "Oh, look at us pretend we have like to pretend to be straight in Dubai." And look, we have to say we have wives, and like their boyfriends, I believe are called Alex and Michael, and so we have to overcall Alexis and Michaela. So it's like well, I do get frustrated, at we still having to go to countries which aren't fully accepting. We have these we have the most LGBTQIA2 plus teams and cast members on the show, and we're going to a country that is very limiting in acceptance for that, which I hate. And I get this episode. Now, this episode was like sort of like a sponsored moment again. So sort of why I went. I still don't like it. I think that needs to be reviewed in standards and practices. I'm just saying that is my thoughts, okay? And I want to know what Mark and Brett's take on it was. How did they take it? I want to know that from that standpoint, because I would have been I'm very fascinated to find out what that view would have been. And that's my take on it. And that is really it from Jack Carlson's Tome of Throws for this week. Straits, you can now come back into the room. It didn't take as long as I thought. I think I was very precise this week in what I wanted to talk about. But who knows if the boys behave? I might not do this next week. Who knows? But we're going to be talking about them very soon, and actually right now even, because they talk about how they're worried that people notice that they've slipped by too many times, and so they're hoping something positive comes up. They talk about a fast forward. That's spooky, isn't it? Very spooky. Next up is Alyssa and Jazza. They leave at 4:09 a.m. and this was a bit weird. So Josiah said he always wanted to land there and say, "Oh, hi, Dubai." Okay, I'm getting the comedic value, but that was just random. We then get Pops and Jeff. They're next to leave at 4:19, and we get a little VT package here, and talking about how they're going in St. Louis. And apparently, St. Louis is one of quite dangerous places. I want to think that. I thought St. Louis was quite a lovely place. So that surprised me a lot. Jeff talks about how he spent a lot of time with his dad and done a lot of things. So basically, he spent the whole of his life with Pops, which I don't know whether to take as a good thing or a bad thing. I didn't know how sort of to take it from a segment of that, he loves his dad. But I think we already knew that. We then get Mark and Brett. They're excited to be in first place as they arrive at the airport. They're like, we're happy to be in first place for a few more minutes until the next team arrives. And I did find that funny. We then get Han and Holden. Their next leave at 4:40 a.m. And Han is happy to get out of Asia until Holden tells her, they're still going to Asia, which I found hilarious. And Melinda and Eric are next leave at 5:08. And they think that they would have been eliminated if it wasn't for the double U-turn. I think it might have been cut close, because I think with the amount of brunt where coconuts would have taken, and you know how much like the heat affected Jonathan in that leg, I'm not sure. I think it might have been cutting it close. Talking about close behind them with Nick and Mike. They leave at 5:10 a.m. and the eye is better. Yay, no sunglasses this week. They say they're striving for first place again. I feel like they say that every week, but come on, boys, focus, believe, achieve. Those who know that reference, you know. We then get Jonathan and Anna at last leave at 5:29 a.m. Not that far behind the boys, not far behind at all. And they think it'll be awkward if they run into Carson and Jack. Following the U-turn route, and we're going to see that very shortly, that will tell you. So at the airport, Jack thinks that there's going to be some bad blood between them and Jonathan and Anna. He's saying this, and me, I'm starting to sing Taylor Swift. You know, Anna's gonna be my blood, Anna's gonna be my love. That's what was going through my head. Holden warns Carson when Jonathan and Anna arrive at the airport, and guess what? It is awkward AF. Let me tell you, Jonathan just shades Carson, and Hans' face is like, and oop, and like insert like the rattlesnake sound, or you know, that's how I thought it was. They were just not here for it, and it was so awkward. And Jack Carson tried to explain, and Jonathan and Anna one like Anna particularly, she was like, no, I'm just not happy. We'll see how this. I feel like it might be foreshadowing to next week. Who knows? Anyway, they show as they head to the bar, they show a lot of shots of the museum of the future, which is the pit stop this week. Like we see it at night, we see it there. We've seen it in so many different shots. Like seriously, I'm like, do they get paid every time they show it? I don't know. We see it a lot. So as they arrive in Dubai, teams are told to get a taxi to the Platinum Heritage Desert Gate to collect one or two departure times for the next morning and stay at the camp for the night in the desert. Jack Carson's taxi lady is an icon. She was living for it. Now all these NPC icons we're getting this season. We had Rice Lady, and we had the sumo guy, and we had coconut pointing lady last week, and now taxi lady. She was iconic. I'm sorry, I lived for taxi lady. And also we didn't get Josiah. I don't think we saw Josiah saying hi Dubai. Remember always wanted to say that, but I don't think we saw that. So I felt like I didn't get that full circle moment there. We then get one of the funniest things that everyone's talking about, the Wiz Khalifa. So of course they make it seem like all teams like, oh yeah, the Burj Khalifa's there, and so like the taxi driver, Markham Butt's taxi driver, is like, oh, that's the Burj Khalifa, and Brett mishears and hears Wiz Khalifa, and but Mark and you see Brett's like taking the back like Wiz Khalifa, eh? So like he knows, so, like that does not sound right, but Mark's like fully going along with it. And apparently they keep on saying it's Wiz Khalifa for the rest of the leg. And then in like the post like interviews and the confessionals, they were still saying Wiz Khalifa. And the production was trying not to laugh. They saw production like just sniggering, and they realized something was up. I'm sorry, who was do you think they would call the world's tallest tower the Wiz Khalifa? And we wouldn't have heard about it. That is just funny. I'm sorry, that is just funny AF. We then get Jack and Carson there arriving. And Jack was saying, oh, it smells like desert. What does the desert smell like? I thought it was very interesting. I want to know, what does desert actually smell like? Answers on the postcard, please. We then get, they've all got their departure times and the other camp, and these people are playing the drums, and there was some bit of awkward dancing. I'm like, yes, dance like you're on Dance Moms, yes, dance like you think you're JoJo, so you are. Who, by the way, is doing very well on Celebrity Big Brother right now. I want to know about this sleeping situation. Was it like just a carpet on sand, or like was there like a bit of padding or cushioning? I want to know about the comfort level of this camp. I'm just saying. And Josiah made a dad joke, which was actually quite funny. He was like, "We've had dinner and now we're having dessert." Instead of dessert, he said desert, which is funny. Josiah, I think, like, is trying to be like the comedian one, the one who no one will vote for because like he's the one who brings the laughter to the group. We then get the next morning and the teams go on the camels, Hun Holden, we get a VT on them, and they talk about the cystic cerebral palsy and She's so adorable, honestly. Makes me love Hannah Holden even more. But also, my thing about the segment was during the voiceover, they're like, "Oh, our sister, she's the one in the middle." Because usually they do this. They talk about like in post-like interviews, like how would they know they would use that picture of her being the one in the middle? How would they know? I want to know that. Anyway, so the two groups are Jack and Constant, Listen to Shazar, Hannah Holden, Jonathan and Anna on group one. And second group, Mike and Brett, Melinda and Erica, Pops and Jeff, and Nick and Mike. And the next morning, they, after their come over, they find that it's a roadblock who wants to drop into Dubai. And guess what? It's skydiving. Brett, Melinda, Jeff, Jack, Alyssa, Holden, Anna, and Nick all take part in this roadblock while they're waiting for the skydivers to come down. Josiah gets emotional over Alyssa, just worrying about her safety. Isn't he precious? Not from the movie, but isn't he precious? Bless his heart. And in an actual caring way, not in the some way. Anyway, they skydive, there's nothing really interesting to say about this. But like Brett later recreates the skydiving, and like he says like, "Oh, we go backwards and forwards, and then we go." And that was only just watching him like recreate it in the confessional. But he didn't want to have his mouth open. He didn't want the flappy mouth. Because when you see everyone skydiving, they have the flap in the mouth. He didn't want the flappy mouth. But as they land, they learn of the fast forward. And the fast forward award for Gab seems to have to find a luxury orange car, sports car, and go to deep dive Dubai and have to dive for the fast forward brick. Ooh, there's a foot race to get this. And we're going to talk about the fast forward right after this. This is not a drill. The Amazing Race, Season 38 and Australia Celebrity Edition Season 9 are currently filming, and I have exclusive spoilers. Stay tuned to the end of the podcast if you want to hear everything about locations, the teams, and even latest elimination spoilers. Join me as I head down into the boiler room. You don't want to miss it. That's later on in this podcast. Okay, we have a foot race here for the fast forward. Han and Holden, they went in the wrong direction on the car park, which allowed for Jack and Carson to overtake them, and they find it first. And Han and Holden are just running up to the car as Jack and Carson have gotten in it. It was so close. Oh, it was breathtaking moment. I didn't know what was going to happen. But Jack and Carson, they made their way to the fast forward. Then as I drove away, there was a little like mapping of the fast forward in progress, which I thought was cute. But there is a bit of discussion. A lot of people have been talking about this. Should more than one person have been able to attempt the fast forward? Honestly, yes. We wanted like how the older seasons were, where there was always like a fight for the fast forward. But I feel like after the last time the fast forward happened, which was in season 29, when Becca and Floyd went for it, they went for the skydiving, and then they ended up like coming in fourth, and they were third or fourth, and like what? And so I felt like they possibly wanted sort of that to happen again. But anyway, that's how I felt on that topic. And for the non-fast forward teams, they have to head to Atlantis, the Royal, to get the next clue. They make an effort here as they arrive at the hotel. They make the effort to show that Alyssa and Josiah, they don't ask for change, but Jonathan and Anna do. They ask for change. And they do, I think, like once or twice. So I feel like something may be prominent there, the reason that they ask. That they're shown up, which I thought was very interesting. As Phil explains, this sort of cooking task, this like decoration task, how is this not a sponsor moment? Like, come on, is it? It can't be. It's like a massive sponsor moment here for Atlantis the Royal. and here with executive chef Christophe Dubois, as teams have to garnish some afternoon tea time treats to perfection of Christophe standards to get the next clue, and they finally sort of get the cooking challenge that they deserve. They get to wear these cute like chef hats, which I thought reminded me of Ratatouille. It made me smile. So while the front teams are getting ahead on that, like some of the all male teams at the back, they're overtaking each other in the taxis, which I like to see because there was like three teams all trying to get ahead. But like Nick and Mike's taxi, like did not want to go into the other lanes, like not listen to them at all. And as Mark comes in, he nearly knocks over Holden's tray. Luckily, Holden made him aware of it. That could have been very fatal there for them. We then get Nick and Mike. They're talking about how they want to learn their mistakes on the last leg of when they did a detail-oriented task. They did the coconuts. Their problem was stacking the coconuts. That is not detail-orientated at all. So I don't know where they're getting that from. I'm feeling a bit like upset here because that was not detail-oriented one bit. It was stacking their coconuts. They could have put them in their mouths, okay? Alyssa and Josiah, they get a fail because they've got the gold leaves. They need to swap the gold leaves with the gold discs on the center, like the long treats. And so as they're doing this, they're saying like it's like doing an elementary school project. And so Han says that Holden always plagiarized her work, and to be fair, Holden, I did the same, honestly. Like, I just took, when it was my turn to do like the same thing my sisters did, I would take their work and just covered it up. No one asked questions, and I got high grade for it. So what? Anyway, Josiah's shocked that he wasn't the one who messed up when they realized about the gold discs. They get past, they go, and they have to make their way to the Burj Al Arab public beach to get the next clue. And Melinda and Erica, they're struggling with this funneling of the icing. They've got a bit of a shaky hand, and they say they prefer being at the back, as it's less pressure than people chasing you at the front. I see that. But there is pressure, there's something called elimination. It's something about, you can get the back, you can go home, and not finish. I'm just saying. That's something I just want to, point out here. Jonathan and Anna, they get a pass here. Han is thirsting of Chef Christoph, even though she does have a boyfriend. She does have a boyfriend. Come on, she definitely was. She was giving him the eye. But they get a pass, and just before they go show Chef Christoph, Mark and Brett, they notice. Well, Brett in particular notices. They're missing some of the white like flowers of some of the cupcakes, in particular Mark's cupcakes. And Mark's like, and Brett is just good at everything, isn't he? Mark was just good at everything. But they get a pass. Melinda and Erica, they get a pass. Jeff and Pops, they get a fail here. Because something fell off their long cakes as they were presenting the tray. And they also need to put white flowers on the cupcakes. We then get Nick and Mike, they get a pass. And they overtake Pops and Jeff, and it feels like that if Nick and Mike pass you, then you are definitely in trouble. But Pops and Jeff don't get a pass. So everyone's there making their way to the beach. By the way, during this time, we kept on going back and forth to the fast forward, and there was I was bored. Like, it didn't give me any content, like them talking through the safety instructions. It gave me nothing. Jack catches the fast forward as they're diving here out of the corner of his eye, and they grab their survey and made their way back to their luxury car to the pit stop with their fast forward award. Well done, boys. Very good job. We then get the second roadblock here, and it's who's ready to ride a wave. And apparently, as Phil tells us, hydrofoiling has been around for more than 100 years. But what makes it more modern that it's e-foil, and a motorised surfboard that goes up to 30 miles an hour. And teams must start at buoy number 1, and they must stand up by the time they reach buoy number 2, and then they need to stay on at buoy number 3 to get the next clue. And we get Josiah, Mark, Han, Jonathan, Eric, Nick, and Jeff to do this roadblock. And there's no limitation to this roadblock. So, like, it doesn't say, oh, the person who didn't complete one earlier has to do it now. There's no limitation, which I found interesting. Alyssa here says that they have no clue about what's going on with the fast forward. So the race, the first place is still on. And then we cross to Carson and Jack. They're in the car heading to the pit stop. Jack's like, oh, we want them to have like a hard detour, strenuous manual labor. But we want it to be done in a completely safe way. We want them to be safe. And then Jack pulls this face, and I've clipped it. And if you're watching the YouTube version, you are seeing that picture right now. I'm sorry that I'm so funny. I couldn't help. I had to go back precisely and just clip it. It will go in the files for future seasons to come. We then get Alyssa and Josiah. We learn that they've had some practice before it's surfing. When they moved to California, and they're terrible at it, but at least they have some experience on it. Holden says it's time for the Terminator to do it. The Terminator referring to Jonathan as he enters the water. And so, what do you think about that? Is he for Terminator? Can he just do anything that he puts his mind to? I can say that about a lot of contestants this season. I think it's just that because he's at the front of the pack. We think at Han, she's talking about her surfing experience and how it's making it much easier. Though she doesn't get to ride waves again this week. Mark decides to do the roadblock here, and a lot of people have been asking Mark, why did you choose it when you obviously did not want to do it, and there weren't any limitations. And so Mark did actually comment on this, and he said, he was slightly down in his roadblock count, so he needed to catch up. He said, because Brett apparently is so good at everything he does, and he always ends up with the most strenuous tasks. Because I thought that Mark did a lot more roadblocks, honestly, until he mentioned it. So I was a bit shocked by that, but I think Mark counts himself short. Yes, Brett is very good at a lot of things. Girl, let me tell you. But Mark is as well. Okay, he did that roadblock with one shoe. Okay, he completed the race roadblock with one shoe. But if this was Drag Race, you would have been eliminated for it. Just saying. Right, so Mark, you've got some good qualities. Okay, boot yourself up about it. Okay. We get Carson and Jack Lee. They check in first to the pit stop, and we've been getting some good prizes last few weeks. The trip for to Croatia, Montenegro. We've had $10,000 last week, and then Jack and Carson get a trip to Alaska. It was like a cruise through Alaska. Seriously, Alaska. Insert picture of their reaction here. Like, seriously, Alaska, really? The only cruise that is acceptable is a gay cruise, and that's the only one I'm accepting. Because, well, it's the best, so, case in point. Okay, no Alaskan cruise here. No, ma'am. I'm not getting stuck in the cold. No. I'm sorry, I need to move on, because I'm just going to keep on saying really, because I can't believe they actually gave him a trip to Alaska. Anyway, Josiah fails on his first attempt, while Han gets it on her first attempt. No one is surprised. And Holden's like, yeah, that's my girl, but by that I mean my sister. Which I did laugh at that. But Holden, there's an awkward moment here with Holden. So he's sort of like trying to explain the positions of where people are to Pops and Mike. And saying, you're doing good, you're in a good spot right now. And then Mike points out, yeah, we're tied for last place right now. And Holden cannot get out of that situation fast enough. He just dug a hole there. It was so awkward. But teams that have to make their way to the Mall of the Emirates metro station and take a train to the Museum of the Future, which is the pit stop for the second race. the last team to check in will be eliminated. Josiah, he wipes out on his second attempt. We see Jeff, he comes and starts to do the roadblock, even though he doesn't like the water. But he says, I've done a few roadblocks, so I need to catch up. Because let me tell you, Pops has been like a machine, let me tell you. Jeff decides to leave his shoes on, which was a choice. The instructor here said he could keep wearing them. That was interesting. Point and note. Josiah, he's next. And Josiah is not happy seeing Nick and Jeff have caught up. And he's starting to get a bit in his head. There has actually been a bit of complaints here about this roadblock. I just want to point out at this point. Because a lot of people say that they showed too much of this roadblock. They could have cut it down. And my thing is, like, in the editing room, do they think, like, we'd enjoy seeing them fall off the e-foil? Like, do we feel would find it hilarious that when they wiped out, did they? I don't know. I don't know how to, like, I don't know. I thought it was okay length for the episode. Josiah, he gets it on his third attempt, and Brett, he is like snapping as Mark does a good turn, which I live for, but then Mark falls over. But Mark keeps on flying up in the air. His ball nearly goes fully up in the air, and he gets a fail as well as Jonathan does. But Mark gets it on his second attempt. Erica gets it on her first attempt. Nick and Jeff fell on their first attempt. Jonathan does get it on his second attempt, and like they had played the victory music for Jonathan, and they kept on going it for Nick, and then he just wipes out, and then they quickly change the wet wet music, which I just thought was hilarious. That they like teased us with the victory music, and then he just failed. We then get Holden and Han in the taxi, and Holden asks the taxi driver if he likes his sunglasses, and then Han points out that that's their mom's sunglasses, and the taxi driver was just not there for it. He was not living, he was not amused. He was not here for the jokes that day. Jeff is able to get on his second attempt, and Nick is getting a bit frustrated because he's back in last place now, and he's like instructors trying to give him like hints and tips, and he just wants his instructors to shut up, let him focus. And Nick then gets on his third attempt, while Melinda and Erica, they get stuck in traffic on the way to the train station. And so Pops and Jeff, they're trying to figure out, they're on the platform, the train's there, the doors are open, and they're trying to still figure out if they're on the right platform, and then the doors close right next to them, and they missed that train. That sort of was the killing moment there for them. And then it's very dramatic, and then they cut to Phil. Have you noticed that when Phil does his like casting promo, there's always the most dramatic time in the episode? Like, come on, the Amazing Race, where it's going to be very dramatic. I don't know if there's the best time of the episode to do it, but still, Nick and Mike, they're able to catch up to the Pops and Jeff, and they know it's going to be a foot race to the mat. We see Han holding it in second, listen to Josiah get third. Josiah calls Han a monster, sort of like a monster, because she's been a beast in the challenges recently. Jeff, we see Jeff on the train. He's starting to really panic. He really does not want to go home today. Mark and Bet, they're checking fourth. Jonathan and Anna fifth, and Linda on sixth, just right behind them. And it is such a close foot race. But they can't race inside the building. They're not allowed to run, so they do very brisk speed walking. Let me tell you. But by the time they were like near the exit, they were practically running it. But Nick and Mike, they out edge Pops and Jeff to the mat. Pops injury slowed him down. And I forgot Pops had an injury. They sort of like they mentioned it in episode 1, and I totally forgot about it because Pops has been killing these challenges. He's been a beast, and I totally forgot about this injury. I just completely forgot. Pops and Jeff are eliminated. Jeff's very disappointed. He looks disappointed, and it's a shame to see them go. And I will be eulogizing them very shortly. But it's now time for I'll Do It My Way to tell you about the choices I would make this leg. And I think if it was between who would do the roadblock, the first roadblock, the skydive, I think it could have been either me or my partner. Either way, I would have myself my partner because I feel like I've done a lot of them this last leg of the race in the last few weeks. So my partner might have done it, but either way, I sort of wouldn't have minded. So that's my take on that. And then, yes, I would have gone with the fast forward. I was like, baby, I'm going to put this like swimming cap on you so your hair doesn't get wet. But we are going for the fast food, whether you like it or not. Uh, if we didn't ended up going for the fast forward, the second roadblock would have been the next choice, and I might have ended up doing this only because it once again involved water, even though I have a terrible sense of balance. So I think this would have been a difficult choice because I do not have very good balance. I fall off very easily. So I don't know how I would have coped with that unless I was on and knew about this stuff. And that's how I do my way for this week. And there wasn't many decisions because we didn't have a detail this week. We had really two decisions to make this week. But there will be more next week as we head into rural Bulgaria. Anyway, we're going to talk all about that, what's to come. We've got the boiler room coming up later on, but right after this, I'll be eulogising the eliminated team, Pops and Jeff, right after this. Hey, fellow race fans. I know you are the same as me and love talking about Amazing Race. And if you want to get something off your chest or want to ask any Amazing Race question, no matter what it is, you can send me it in the comments or send me an email at checkinchatpodcast@gmail.com and I might answer it in a future podcast. Okay, before we start this next segment, I'm just going to fully, openly acknowledge it's the next morning. And I don't know if I'm sounding worse or wear because I was partying all night at the London Eurovision party. I'm not hungover, but I did party out, I will say. So I don't know how my voice is feeling this morning. I don't know how it's going to transfer. I also, there's a construction site across the street from me outside my window right now. And I'm also watching Diagnosis Murder. So all that's happening all at once. But it is time for... We were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. This is the segment of the podcast where I eulogise the eliminated team. And this week's it's Pops and Jeff. And weren't they lovely? They're adorable. They're a good father and son team. But for me, I didn't feel I got to know them. All I really got to know about them was that, they work together. They've spent all their lives together and have got this amazing bond. And Jeff loves his dad. But I felt like I didn't really get to know them as people. Not like the other teams. I just didn't feel I got as close of a connection as them. But I did like the fact that they had that social strategy element to them. It's like, oh, we didn't like what Jonathan Hunt did with driver seat. We want revenge, and then they sort of took that into action, and then they created an alliance with Melinda and Erica, which worked out good for those few early legs. And so I like the way that all worked out, and I just want to say, Pops is a beast. Okay, he took those challenges with ease, and I mentioned just before, we saw him sort of limping on the way to the pit stop. Like I totally forgot about the injury. I totally forgot about it. I remember mentioning it in episode 1, but it's like he's been crushing it so hard. You wouldn't have known until this part, and it was so unfortunate that they just missed that train, and that's sort of what led to them going home this week, and would they have survived the next leg? Maybe. I think they might have survived another leg or two, but I don't think anymore. I don't think they would have made the final five, because I think the like top teams like Jack and Carson, Anna and Jonathan, Hannah and Holden, who really come up now and really cemented their place up in the top. Alyssa and Josiah, they're like really strong, and Mark and Brett as well. So I don't think they would survive much longer. And would they have won? No. I'm going to be very honest with it. I don't think they would have won. Um, and that's just it. So it is a shame to see them go, and they were lovely. Phil loves them. If Tough as Nails was still on, like he would have like got so much from them. He like you saw the ka-ching signs um when they were cast. He loves them. So I think Phil's upset to see them go. But that unfortunately we have to say goodbye to them. And then we are now down to just 7 teams. We've lost half the cast so far, and we've got 6 more legs to go, with lots more surprises next week. They're heading for the first time, the first of 2 legs in Bulgaria, and we're going to see the double U-turn, the normal double U-turn return next week, and it's also the first self-driving leg of the season, and we see, Jack and Carson, they get lost, Anna and Jonathan, they get stuck in the mud. Mark and Brett, they get all the way on their backs during the detour, I think it is. And, a few teams are struggling here as they go down on the farm in rural Bulgaria. I don't know who's going to be U-turned. I don't know if, like the last few legs with Jonathan and Anna at the back, they got 5th place this week. So maybe he's sort of no longer seen as the Terminator, as Holden put it, but maybe they will go for Jack and Carson. I think there was a bit of foreshadowing this week, I feel, and I'm hoping they're not U-turned. I hope they get to the U-turn ball first, because I also think if Alyssa and Josiah get to the U-turn ball first, I think they'll U-turn Jack and Carson. I think Jack and Carson are very good targets. But then, to counteract it, if they do get U-turned, I think they might U-turn Nick and Michael, Melinda and Erica, sort of said, weaker teams who are always at the back, to make sure they're eliminated, which, would be devastating to see. But we're going to have to wait and see. I feel really invested, because we don't know what's going to happen here. So the last few episodes have been predictable, but we're self-driving, and these tasks, I think these tasks are going to be quite tough. I'm going to be very interested to see what happens next. So, unfortunately, that is the end of the podcast. But this part, anyway, if you would like to stay and hear all about the spoilers for season 38 and Australia 70th edition season 9, then you can stay on. We're going to go down to the depths of the boiler room. But if you want to stay spoiler free, it's perfectly fine. You can join me again next week. And from that, you can leave me a like and subscribe on YouTube, and leave me a comment in the comment section. Or if you're listening to the audio version podcast, you can send me an email at chickenshatpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next week. But for those who want spoilers, we're about to go down to the depths of the boiler room right after this. Okay, so welcome back into the depths of the boiler room. Now, you know the drill by now, so I'm not going to give you the countdown warning. We're going to go straight into it, because we have reached the final stretch of spoilers. So I'm going to start with Australia first. And so as soon as I recorded last week's segment, of course, we had lots of sightings in Taiwan. Now, what Bo likes to do is he likes to go on Instagram and like these pictures of the next locations, but then puts the incorrect location tag. So it was like earlier, like when you were going to Uzbekistan, he was like, "Oh, I'm in Belarus," really, and so he was like, "Oh, we're heading to South Korea." No, but we see the airplane. You're heading to Taiwan, and so we got quite a few sightings. It was a night leg, and they were all over the place. We had so many sightings, let me tell you. We saw Aisha and Scott, Rob and Georgia, Gretel and Epiphany, Luke and Scott, and Stephen and Bernard. We see them in Taiwan. We did not see Melissa and Leah, so we believe at that point they have been eliminated. And we believe at this point that our final 5 teams, we don't know anything more about what's happened. We think they're doing another leg in Taiwan. We also believe they could have gone to Indonesia. We're not 100% on this, but there are hints and rumours going they finished off in Indonesia. But we have nothing concrete on that, apart from and we might have seen an alleged production van, but that's all we know from that. So we also believe that possibly Gretel and Epiphany were eliminated. Apparently, there was a sight of them looking a bit lost. So I hope that's not the case because I love Gretel and Epiphany. But apart from that, we have nothing else to talk about for Australia for now, which is a shame. But I did give you a little bit of a treat here. Like I think I would be happy if any of the 5 teams won. Like I don't know Luke and Sassy. His name's Scott, but apparently goes by Sassy. I don't know Sassy or Luke, but I'll be interested to see them on the show. And I love the other team, so I think I'm going to be happy this year. Last season I wasn't happy that Bam Bam and Logan won. I'm sorry, controversial. So I can't wait to see how that all turns out, and we'll see that later on this year alongside the return of Big Brother. And let's go now straight into season 38. And season 38 ended this week, and we do have a bit of information on that. So the last time we checked in with them, they were in Italy. Okay, so they were in Italy, and we had 1 or 2 sightings of them. But we do know that Jack and Chelsea got eliminated here. They returned back to social media, which means we're down to the final 4. And guess what? They went back to France. Seriously, you had one job, production. Do not go back to France. How many times have they gone back to France? Seriously, especially within the last 10 seasons. Really? France again? Anyway, they were in Paris. We saw them in Notre Dame a few times there. But the main signs were, but with also people got pictures with Phil. Like they were having selfies with Phil. But also, we did get sightings of them each team checking into the mat. Jack and Jess, I believe, were first, followed by Kyle and Taylor, and then Joseph and Adam were third. Joseph and Adam were celebrating. Everyone was celebrating on their knees in celebration. But unfortunately, this did mean that Izzy and Paige were eliminated here. And I know a lot of fans are very upset by that, with the last of the gays being eliminated here. But that does mean that Joseph and Adam, Kyland and Taylor, and Jack and Jess are the final 3 teams. Now, we thought they would give them a little bit longer in Paris, but no. Obviously, we didn't catch them until after the leg had ended. We found that they went to New York. They took us all by surprise. We thought they might have gone to LA and ended at the Big Brother house, but no, it was in New York. It was a New York leg. We got a few signs of them at a clue box and then running around the streets of New York, but we do know that the finish line was at Yankee Stadium, and that's all we know. We don't know who's won, but it is one of those 3 teams. I know if it was for me, Team Joseph and Adam, I know there's a lot of fans, and I don't get the hate for it, but there's a lot of people who do not like Jess and Jag, and because they didn't like that Jess won Big Brother, and they felt that he was sort of a boring winner, and so they're just not happy with him in general, so they don't want him to win. And then Kyle and Taylor, who have bumped up a little bit, and so about from like the start of the season, where they were near the back. Now, apparently, from what we know, is that the few little twists and turns that were involved this season. Apparently, the driver's seat returned this season, but we don't know what that entails. Also, the U-turn was back. It's alleged that it was a triple U-turn. So that's what it is allegedly. But also, apparently the hazard returned this season. So we don't know. That might be a twist on season 38. So if it's season 37, we don't know just yet. But apparently the hazard's back all the way from season 19. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago, apparently Kyland and Taylor got an express pass. And this was apparently, there was a challenge before the race started officially. And Kyland and Taylor won the challenge. And they won 2, and they gave 1 also to Justin Jag. We don't know the expiry dates or how long that lasted, etc. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, we saw Izzy and Paige with a fast forward clue on leg 4 in Hungary. We believe that is correct. And it's sort of, we think that it's found another season of surprises, but with a big brother twist in the midst of it. And we also believe that the fast forward was claimed. So someone did take the fast forward and win it. We also know that for most of the season, they used public transport to get through country to country, not flights, which is very interesting. We learned that very quickly. We caught on that at the beginning of the season, especially now since this season was the great, amazing Europe race. They did not leave Europe one time apart from the end. And apparently, at the beginning of the race, they were all exhausted. So apparently, like the back teams took almost 14 hours to finish the leg. And the first leg, apparently there was like 5 tasks, including the additional express pass challenge. And so the back teams then also fell very behind because of this. And so in like legs 2 and 3, they then missed a key connecting train, so that put them further behind, and there weren't any hours of operational bunching points for them to catch up at that point. It took them a few more legs then to catch up, which is a shame, because I know there's some teams at the back of the teams were gutted to leave early. So that is all the tea on season 38 until it airs in this September. So for that, it is the end of the podcast this week officially. If you want to leave me a comment, go do that in the comment section on YouTube. Give me a like and subscribe as well, very much appreciated. If you're listening to the audio podcast, send me a 5-star review and leave me an email, checkandchatpodcast@gmail.com. And I will see you all next week. No.